Good morning. Sounds strange to say good morning, welcome to Sunday Night Live, but or let's call that good evening, welcome to Monday Morning Live. Anyway, anywhere you are on the planet, welcome. I'm glad you're here. It's December, almost time for holidays, right? And I'll leave it at holidays. Hi there, so I don't offend anyone. And you know how worried I am about offending people. It's like one of my biggest concerns. There you go. Okay. Actually, uh, anyway, so good morning, everyone, and Sawadee Kap, Namaste, Namaskar, Aloha, and Good night. Okay, so good morning. Good morning, Melody. I see you. You're getting ready for bed, right? Right. I knew it. I knew it. Do I know what I can do for bloatedness? Yes, bloatedness. Okay, that's a great way to start the day because it's at the end of the day for you folks. You know, I wonder if someone's bloated, they're usually not bloated in the morning as much as they are in the evening, unless they have a condition like ascites or something like that. But there's the feeling of bloatedness, which is she is getting ready for bed. I can tell. That's in her mind. She's thinking, how do I avoid bed? How do I avoid bed? That means she's getting ready. Anyway, before we get started, let me just address this thing here. Bloatedness is gas. Usually, that's what I think that's what we mean most of the time when we say it. If anyone knows what ascites is, that's a completely different feeling. That's when there's fluid in the abdomen. How do you get protein and B12 as a vegan? What a fantastic question, Karen. Don't let me lose that one. Gosh, these are good questions. So anyway, we accumulate gas. Gas is produced by microorganisms. So when they're digesting the food that we can't, they're the byproduct of their metabolizing it is gas, and they produce different kinds of gas, molecular nitrogen, carbon dioxide, methane. There's all sorts of things in the gas. And anyway, so it's in there, and the more bloated we get is probably the less efficient we are at digestion. Okay, so what I would recommend absolutely, if you're bloated or if you don't want to get bloated, and especially if you're either not well or you're over the age of 40, 45, then you want to take some hydrochloric acid before you go to sleep. Hey, we're there on Instagram and Rumble. Yay. All right. How about X? Everybody on X today? Wow, you guys are asking great questions. The D word, how many questions? 3 weeks on, 1 week off. Okay. Hydrochloric acid, 2 or 3 capsules. You can get it. It's called betaine hydrochloric acid, or it's called pepsin betaine hydrochloric acid. Anyway, you can get that anywhere online and at Sprouts or whatever, wherever you go, natural grocers, or your local supplement supply place. Just don't get it from Mr. Bezos, okay? No Bezos. No pesos for pesos, okay? Bezos has plenty of pesos. Plenty. You take that 10 to 15 minutes before eating so that your stomach is full of acid the way it's supposed to be when you eat, so that you can process everything you're eating appropriately, and that'll happen. You can take 3 capsules if you'd like. And if you feel a little bit warm or a little bit burning, or not quite burning, but just a little uncomfortable, then next time you're going to take only 2. But if you don't feel uncomfortable with the 3, stick with the 3. And in fact, you can keep going up until you feel a little uncomfortable, and then go 1 down until you get to that spot, because it depends on how much acid you are still producing. All right, so that's that. And the other thing you want to do is at the end of your meal, when you're finished, a handful of digestive enzymes. Okay, and the place I use is a Transformation, and they have different kinds of enzymes, with different amounts of proteases and lipases and cellulases and things like that. So the one I get is Digestzyme, because it's got a lot of cellulase, breaks down cellulose, which if you don't break it down too well, you might make some gas. So, okay, so that's the best way to do it. And then the other one is have long periods between last meal and first meal. You got to have like at least 18 hours. And you stop eating 4 to 5 hours before sleep. And if you do all that, it should be work. And then you got to clean out the bottom. So in the morning, you can do a saltwater enema, cleansing enema, and 1-2 quarts. Add about maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt to Himalayan salt to a quart of water. That's what I do for a cleansing enema. And then you put it in a glass pot, and you can bring it up to, let it heat up to body temperature. How do you know it's body temperature? You put your finger in, it doesn't feel cold, it doesn't feel warm. All right, and just do that to help the salt dissolve. You don't have to do that. And then you do that, clean yourself out. So you cleaned yourself out, you hadn't eaten, it's really helpful. And then you start using these things. Now, the other one question here I saw was, what was that? What was that question here? It was a good one. What was that question? Oh, how do you get protein and B12 as a vegan? All right. Well, okay. So how do you get protein and B12 as a vegan? So again, this is all going to come out in the food webinar we're going to do, the real human diet, or whatever we're going to call it, the human diet. But anyway, so what is protein? Because we all need protein. We know about that. We've heard that, and it's been our mantra, right? We go protein, gotta have protein, protein, gotta have protein, right? So it's a big, big deal. It turns out that if you're eating, you're getting enough protein. As strange as that may seem, even if you're eating like junk food. And the reason is that because we only need 5% of our caloric intake to be protein. That's all we need, and that's easy. I mean, a banana is 5% protein. It's not a complete protein, but I mean, you had enough of a combination of those, you'd have it. What is protein? Protein is amino acids. What are amino acids? That is a nitrogen stuck onto a carboxylic acid group. So carbon, nitrogen put together. Who puts them together? Microorganisms only. Which microorganisms do that? The ones that live on plants. So the ones that live on plants put that together, right? And that is, some of them are done on it's done on the roots, and others it's not on the roots. But that's what it is. They're called nitrogen fixing bacteria or microorganisms. They take the nitrogen out of the air, and out of the air, the ambient air is 78% nitrogen. You take that and you stick it onto a carboxylic acid, to a carbon, and you've got an amino acid, the fundamental basic amino acid. And then there's another carbon between those. And then you start adding chains onto it, and you get all the 20 essential amino acids, right? And the plants make all of them. Animals don't. So we make 9. We make 11. We need 9. And if we get those 9 essential amino acids, then we can make the other 11. So a complete protein for a human is when you have you're able to ingest all 9 of those essential amino acids, and you make the rest. If you look at something like a cat or dog, an animal that eats animals, they don't have any essential amino acids. I mean, non-essential amino. They need them all. They can't make any, so they got to eat animals. Why? Because animals, they don't have to eat animals. They could eat plants. They could eat plants and get it. But anyway, they don't have it. They don't make any. So we need to get 9, and we can get that very, very easily. For example, chia seeds not only have the 9 essential that we need, and that's all we need, but they have all but 2 of the non-essential. So it's a complete protein on steroids. It's got everything. We need chia seeds. Can you imagine that? And they don't bark, but you can pet them. So B12. What is B12? B12 is what we call a vitamin. It's necessary in many things, including DNA, replication, and nerve health. Many things. And it's made also by, guess what? Microorganisms, germs. Those germs, they're making all this stuff for us. So we got to change the word germ. Let's not call them germs. Let's call them. Let's come up with a better name, because they're not, the word germ implies we don't nasty. We don't need it. We don't want it. Well, we do need it. Okay. Hey, Kathy. Good morning. For you, it's morning. I know. And for those of you on the other side of the world, it's evening or really early morning. So anyway, it's essential. And so people that eat animals, you are usually, now what kind of, if you eat animals, what kind of animals do you eat? Do you eat animals that eat animals? No, you eat animals that eat plants, right? Just like a lion. Lions don't eat animals that eat animals, right? Lions eat wildebeest. They eat zebras. So the animals that eat animals don't eat the animals that eat animals. Yeah, I learned that from, what's his name? Eminem. Animals that eat animals don't eat animals that eat animals. But the animals that eat animals, the animals that, the people that eat animals that eat animals that eat plants. Why? Because it's better quality flesh. This is why carnivores eat, good morning, Bea. Yeah, so that's why. So carnivores eat vegans because they're not stupid. Yeah, that's what they do. Now, some of the scavengers, like hyenas, and and a lot of any dog is a scavenger, but the ones that they don't necessarily need to eat an animal, right? They can eat plants as well. But anyway, if you're eating an animal that was a vegan, okay, so hyenas will eat animals that eat animals. They'll eat other dead animals, right? So, yeah, and but that's that. Ruminants, because they have GI tracts that are meant to digest plant material, right? Just like what are they called? Oh, gorillas, yeah, and chimps, exactly, yeah. Not quite the same as the ruminant, but 10 feet of 10 meters or 30 feet of intestines. So the B12 they get is because the animal, like the cow or the zebra or the what else? Even the chicken, they've got their face in the dirt all day long, so they're ingesting these soil-based organisms that produce the B12. So that's where they're getting it. It's not that they have it and they make it; they're eating it. So these organisms, microorganisms that produce, you know, cyanocobalamin, uh, uh, there, in fact, there's some cyanobacteria which are thought to be prior to like one of the first organisms, if it happened the way it's been told to us, you know, uh, millions of years ago. But anyway, we've got them in our colon, and they make B12. But guess what? We get, hey, Steve, morning. They, uh, if they produce it, it just comes out because the only place we can absorb B12 is in the last part of our small intestines called the ileum. All right, and so if it's not there, we can't absorb it. All right, that's why if this is very interesting. If you're eating plants for many years, these guys, because of their because of the environment you're producing for them, they migrate upstream and they start living in your small intestines. And then if they make it, then you get it, and then it's not a vitamin because you're getting it anyway. But so until you've done that for a while, until you've come back to eating a human diet, you're going to get B12 supplemented somehow. But you don't have to worry about protein. Kwashiorkor's disease and marasmus are the two conditions that we are you buzzed? Yeah. Are the two conditions that result from protein malnourishment. And where do we see those? Do we see them in our regular local hospitals? No. I've never seen that anyone admitted to the hospital with either of those diagnoses. We only see them in Africa and places where there is starvation. So if you're not eating, you'll become protein malnourished. If you are eating, it's just this is still going. We're telling. Oh, that's that one. Okay, so as long as you're eating, you're getting protein. It's very difficult not to get enough protein. The thing we have to concern ourselves about is, are we getting enough fats, healthy fats? That's the thing, and that should be our mantra: fat, 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 not protein, protein. But we'll go into all that in depth. Okay, so anyway, let me just say the kind of thing I need to say. So once again, you all know by now, I'm sure, that we're on several platforms. Now, I really want everyone to move over to Rumble, and I'm gonna, over to X, because X is uncensored, and I can speak freely. And so, if you move over to X, and that'd be great. And so it's X. It's at Dr. Thomas Lodi MD. At Dr. Thomas Lodi MD. Okay, and then Rumble and all the other ones, which are Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, except TikTok, are at Dr. Thomas Lodi. And of course, TikTok is now Dr. Lodi 2.0. We had to do that because TikTok canceled us. Anyway, that's it. All right, so let's get going. We did that. Yeah, and again, the parasite group, the health and healing group, and the CFC group. Those are the three groups where we meet. We meet a lot. We talk a lot. We share a lot of information. And we can talk more about your individual situation, like we do on these. Whereas in this platform, and the way we have it organized, that we're going to answer questions that you've submitted. Okay, so, but in the group forums that if you join these groups, we just have discussions and we can have interaction. So it's pretty cool. It's a lot better. So let's make sure everything's cool. Yeah. That's that, and that's that. That's that. And that's that. How do I do this? Can I do this? Sort of. And then I would do this. And there is that. Wow. And that. And that. All right, cool. All right, whatever. So, let's get into the questions, right? So this is from Elena, and remember, you submit your questions on our website, Dr. Thomas Lodi, okay, .com. Elena, I have a poodle dog with brain CFCs. I've been giving ivermectin and fenbendazole and supplements to protect his liver, CBD and THC, but now his back legs are very weak. I don't know what to do. He used to be a good eater. Now I have to hand feed him. Please help. Well, okay. So if it's if he's got CFCs in the brain, as you probably know, that the brain is like grand central, right? And now on the left side over here, we have what's called the sensory cortex and the motor cortex. Okay, and those are the central areas at which, like on the sensory cortex, you can have the fingertips. Every part of the body is represented on there. It's called the homunculus. Every part of the body is there, and then on the motor cortex, every part of the body is there. So if you were to stimulate it and get the arm part, it would go up, or your leg part. So that's where all the messages come to, and they arrive there, and then we have the sensation, or a feeling or movement, things like that, and we do move. So if his back legs are not, he can't stand at this point, then that means that somehow that part is being compressed or compromised somehow, and it almost sounds more like the tumor must be near the back of the brain, near maybe the cerebellum, or getting into the spine. And so if what can you do? Well, when I was training doctors with IPT, I also had veterinarians come for training and taught them how to do IPT, because there are situations where you need something strong and quick, right? And you don't want that to hurt the person or the animal. You don't want them to be damaged. So you want to be able to, like, if you're going to use poison, you want to be able to target it and hit the target, and not, it's like you got a deadly scorpion on the wall. You could throw a little dart, or you could throw a hand grenade. At the hand grenade, you lose the wall. Doesn't make much sense. So anyway, the IPT allows you to focus and target in on the tumor. So that's, if you could find a vet that does that, that would be great. Otherwise, the fenbendazole and the ivermectin are great, but they may not be enough at this point. And the other things you're doing, the THC and the CBD, I don't really know those effects on animals, but must be it's got to be some very similar to us. But I don't really know what else you could do with a dog. I mean, intravenous ozone. I don't know if I don't know how that works with dogs. Um, but ozone, intravenous curcumin, um, whole body hyperthermia. Um, and then the other thing is the teeth. I don't know. I'm sure there's no biological uh, veterinary dentists because that eating, since our animals are domesticated, that means they're eating the same junk that we are, and they probably have problems with their microflora, just like we have problems with our microflora. And if they get up into the up along the periodontal areas, and they, because I know animals now, domesticated animals are losing their teeth as well, and they're getting holes, uh, passageways up, and then all the cranial nerves go up through the brain, so anything in the mouth. So there's a lot of problems. So I don't know. I know it's hard for humans to find the right people to help them. So it must be super super hard. But if the dog is, you know, you do what you can. You love them and take care of them until you can't anymore. And but if the legs are weak, that means there's some movement near the spinal cord or the back part of the brain, or maybe even on the motor. But it's more like the back part. How do you shrink that? You gotta shrink that with IPT, or I don't know if they have dog interventional radiologists for dogs, etc. Sometimes you've got to use these things, these toxic therapies in situations where it's imminent. Where if you don't use them, the it'll be all over. So anyway, so I don't know much else to say for that. This is from Shoku. Whoa, I think you meant dear, Dr. Lodi, but you mixed up that D with an R with a D, so it says dead, Dr. Lodi. But I'm going to ignore that. Uh, but I didn't ignore it, did I? Okay, anyway, this is an urgent question as time is of the essence. I'm writing on behalf of my friend who has colorectal CFC. She is 52 and recently diagnosed with stage 4 CFC, and it is due to have surgery on December 19th. What's today? Ah, guess we're too late. Wow, 23rd. Or 22nd for you guys. Uh, to remove her colon and put in place a permanent stoma. Okay, probably not her whole colon, probably just part of it. Before her diagnosis, she had lost a lot of weight, had diarrhea at nights, lots of work, and family stress and history of colitis. I told her about your integrative approach and recommended she contacts you for second opinion. Whilst she believes in natural treatments and that it's a metabolic issue, she's been told it hasn't metastasized yet, so they need to operate as soon as possible and then follow the chemo. Okay, so if it hasn't metastasized, then it's not stage 4. If it's stage 4, it has metastasized. So there's a misunderstanding there somehow. I think she's afraid it will spread, so she's going ahead with the surgery, though she is terrified, and will then look into integrated natural treatments later. My question is, do you think surgery is the right approach? I don't want to frighten her or interfere in the family's decisions, but I'm worried what will happen if she's pulled into the medical system. What would you advise her if she had come to call you? What can she do for herself now? She's very weak and was given iron infusions and been told to fatten up. So she's eating smoothies and croissants and cakes. Yeah. I don't know. This what they do should be illegal because It's not assisted suicide because the person's not intending on this. So if you're helping someone die and they're not requesting it, and they're not volunteering to be assisted, so it's not suicide. We take out the sui and we replace it with a homicide. Anyway, so all right. I'm beating around the bush. I'm not beating around the bush, Teresa. I'm giving context. Is my mind somewhere else? And I'm beating around the bush. So would I do surgery? It depends. I don't really know her situation yet because you said it was stage 4, and then you also said that it had metastasized. So that's one issue that we should clarify. The other one is it obstructing? Is it causing an obstruction? You said that you would need a stoma. When they say a permanent stoma, that means it's usually near the last part of the large intestines, right near the like the sigmoid or even in the rectum. And if it's there, then they can't. If it's above that, then they can take out that part of the colon and put them back together. But if it's too low, they can't do that. All right. So it sounds like if they said permanent stoma, then that must mean that it's far down, close to or in the rectum. And the question is it obstructing or is it imminently obstructing? Are her stools very thin and difficult to come out, or not? Because if she's not almost obstructing, then you're not. And if that's not imminent, then surgery doesn't have to be done yet. You can try other things, but once it looks like it's going to be unstoppable. That's when you do the surgery, and you want to do it before it's an emergency. You want it to be an elective surgery, not an emergent surgery. Okay, so I don't know the situation, so I don't know how to answer your question. Okay, she has a history of colitis. That means inflammation of the colon. And you mean ulcerative colitis? That's one thing, and then but anyway, itis just means inflammation. Colo stands for colon. And so there's inflammation of the colon, and that can be from multiple things, but it's usually from a dysbiosis. So she doesn't have a healthy relative proportion of microorganisms. So, that's what she would need to work on. So there's a lot that I don't know regarding her situation. So, and her fear that if she gets the surgery, then she can, because she doesn't want it to spread, because it hasn't spread. If that's the reason, and it's not because it's imminent obstruction, then I would have said inform her that surgery will make it spread. So therefore, if you're going to get surgery, let's do certain things to mitigate that, right? One of them, you take Pectosol so that it helps that. There are other things that you take in advance for like a week or two to be ready for the surgery, and you have to understand what surgery is going to do and all that, so you're prepared for it to minimize all the problems that can occur from it. So a lot of unknowns, but basically she needs to attend to her colon, attend to the microorganisms, which means attend to diet and clean it out, and and there's a lot of different things. So I would advise her. So I don't know. At this point, she's had the surgery. So now we're talking about what to do now. So when she comes out of it, if her fear is gone, if they don't scare her more and convince her to do high dose chemo or anything like that, then she has a chance. And then I'd be happy to give her some suggestions. Right. The iron infusions aren't. There's another way. There's a better way. There's a more direct way to, because obviously she's getting iron infusions because she's got an iron deficiency anemia, and it's most likely due from blood loss in this situation. So she needs more iron. The problem is that the CFCs, like the iron too. They have a lot of iron receptors. And so when you give it IV like that and you're giving a large amount, they usually, the CFCs grab the majority of it and a little bit goes to the bone marrow. So to make the red blood cells. So the best thing to do in that condition is to give uh, an IV injection of erythropoietin, which is a hormone the kidneys make uh, as part of our red blood cell um, production. And so the erythropoietin comes from the kidneys, goes to the bone marrow, and tells the progenitor cells to start making red blood cells, right? And that's what happens normally. So if you give that, like a 40,000 units of, they call it Procrit, they call it Epigen, there's different brand names. You give that, and then that's followed by an IV infusion of iron, and Venifer is the safest one. And if that's followed, now you've already stimulated the red blood cell, the progenitor cells in their bone marrow to be calling the iron, right? So even though the CFCs have all these extra receptors and they're calling it, now it's fair. Now there is the bone marrow will be calling, and there will be a more equitable distribution of that iron. So that's very important. Otherwise, it mostly goes to the CFCs. All right. So that's what. But in the hospitals, the doctors don't know that. They don't know that. I don't know why they don't know that. So what can she do for herself right now? What now she can do is heal, and you know, it's not that she needs to fatten up. If she needs to gain weight, it's probably due to the muscle loss, right? You don't want to regain fat. That's not unless you're below a certain amount of fat. You don't need to regain fat. What we need to regain is muscle, because we lose muscle. We basically type 2 muscle fibers, and so you can do some movements for that. But in order to gain those muscle strength back, you need to be eating a healthy diet. That's going to give you all of the amino acids, and that is chia seeds and things like that, plants. And you also need to have the proper hormones. You have to have enough testosterone, which will help. Um, uh, it's necessary for the muscle strength. Okay, you need those two things, and then you need movement, certain kinds of movement, and all of that will help muscle return. So before she can do that, she's going to have to get some energy. But meanwhile, she can balance out her hormones, and she can make sure she's getting adequate nutrients, um, and then she can work on movement. But she's got to have her energy back first. So there's a lot we can do with her, and I can't, and she's not even listening. So, all right. So this is from Jasmine, and I have a very important question to ask my mom. Is stage 4 CFCs, colon CFCs, with Mets to the peritoneum. See, this has metastasis, so that makes it stage 4. The other one sounds like it wasn't. She had been taking ivermectin with no problem, but this year in August we re-challenged Folfox, worked for 2 cycles. Okay, so for those who don't know, Folfox is the name of it's the acronym for uh, oxaliplatin and 5-FU, which are 2 chemotherapies that are used pretty standard in colon CFCs. All right, so worked no problem. This year in August, we re-challenged Folfox for 2 cycles. Her CEA dropped. That's a tumor marker. The CEA dropped. Okay, but yeah. But then after second cycle, my mom had a partial bowel obstruction. This happened twice more in 2 months. After the first episode, my mom stopped ivermectin. But now, every time I give her ivermectin, even at the dose of 6 milligrams, she gets blockage. This has happened thrice in a row, unable to make out the connection. I did Google, and it says ivermectin can slow down gut motility. Is it because of that? I seriously want to add ivermectin to a protocol, but I'm scared of blockage. I tried getting answer, but no one was helpful. What shall I do to take ivermectin without potential blockage happening? Gut motility meds to counter the side effects? Question. Okay, so, all right, so that is not major effect. I don't know what's happening, why that's happening with her. In fact, I've never ever had anyone have that problem from ivermectin. There's no reason, like there's no reason it can happen. But if you conclude that she can't take the ivermectin, first of all, she's got to be well hydrated. There's eating food with fiber, and she, have large. Um, uh, Her feces needs to be large and full of fluids, water, which the fiber will attract it, so they can move right through. Okay, but then when you say bowel obstruction, I'm assuming you're talking about small bowel, because that's usually what we're talking about when we talk about bowel obstruction. Um, People get, they're called small bowel obstructions, and so I know I'm missing something here. However, um, so she's eating right, getting enough fluids, all that sort of thing, getting movement around, and she's getting a bowel. Every time she takes it, then you don't take the ivermectin, but you can take fenbendazole or mebendazole, niclosamide, um, praziquantel, um, palmoate. Those are for the worms, and then you want to get you can use nitazoxanide, which is going to get both protozoa, single-celled organisms, and it's going to get some of the worms as well. So there's many things you can do. So um, until you can figure out the whole ivermectin thing, just give her the other ones, niclosamide, 500 3 times a day, and I'm not telling you to do that because I don't know her. I can't tell you what to give your mother or your friend. Who's it? Your mom. I can't tell you what to treat her because I don't know her situation, and with no one here. I don't know the situation thoroughly. I haven't read the chart, I haven't looked at the labs, and I haven't examined the person, so I can't really give a valid opinion, except that what I would do in the situation like you're describing, that and I'm assuming certain things. I'm assuming certain things, and the reason I'm assuming them is because I don't have all the information is not available to me, right? All right. So, but what I would do in a situation like that, if I found someone that couldn't, for some reason, couldn't take ivermectin, it's okay. We can't take ivermectin, so we'll do the other ones. As I said, niclosamide, praziquantel, nitazoxanide, palmoate. Um, so, but if you wanted to look for, gut motility, something to increase um, gut motility, there is, what's it called again? It increases peristalsis. Use it often, and I'm not thinking of it. I'll think of it. Things. Isn't that weird when you're trying to remember something? It kind of like sneaks by, and you think you saw it and can't get it. It's like running around all those sulci in my brain. Anyway, it's there. I'll find it and I'll tell you. I'll mention that again. Okay, so let's go to the next person. And this is from somebody whose name I can't pronounce because it's written in Arabic. Dear Dr. Lodi, I would like to know the percentage of magnesium chloride, potassium chloride, and calcium chloride will be added to a solution of 50 grams of vitamin C as an IV drip. Okay. I have to start also curcumin IVs, but I don't know how to start taking it. Oh, okay. So this was a what do you call it? A question on the. So you didn't think I was going to answer this you thought I would send you an email and all that sort of thing. So anyway, so when you say you're going to start an IV drip, of vitamin C. Now, if the source you have is ascorbic acid, that means that um, it's the pH is probably 6.8, around there. So it's lower than you want. So in order to bring it up, you're going to have to add sodium bicarbonate, and that's normally what people do, unless you have sodium ascorbate powdered. And if you have pure sodium ascorbate, then you don't need to do that. But if you don't have it, then you've got to add bicarbonate, and bicarbonate is sodium bicarbonate, right? So that winds up uh, alkalinizing it and bringing the pH up. All right, and then so the magnesium chloride for like a 50, you said 50 grams of vitamin C, um, uh, about 400 milligrams, right? So it's usually 200 milligrams per ml per cc. So you get 2 cc's of that, right? So in the calcium, you need about 6.987 milliequivalents of the calcium, gluconate. And potassium chloride, again, you want to give that, but you want to give no more than 10 milliequivalents, okay? No more than 10 milliequivalents. That's what you add to it, okay? Potassium is a tricky one because if you get up too high and you have too much potassium, it actually stops the heart. So you be careful with that. And so the rule that we all go by is you don't want to give more than 20 milliequivalents ever, or you don't want to give 20 or even close to 20 within an hour. Never want to do that, right? So 10 over whatever, an hour and a half, 2 hours is fine, but you need to. And then I would add zinc and selenium. That's what I do. 25 milligrams of zinc, 400 micrograms of selenium, because while you're doing that, you might as well give the minerals like that. Yep. And then the what do you call it? Now curcumin. Here's the thing about curcumin. The problem with it is that if you take it orally, you only absorb 3%. If they make if they make it with pepperine, which is in pepper, it absorbs better. You might be able to get up to 5% of what you ingest will be absorbed. And the second problem is once it's absorbed in the blood, it gets metabolized so quickly that very little can ever get to where you're wanting it to go. So giving it IV, you can bypass at least that absorption problem. You can put it straight in. However, it is metabolized so quickly that again, you're not getting enough at the target. So what has happened? There were like mainly three ways to prepare curcumin for IV use. And the one way that worked the best were there were some studies done up in Washington. Has been made illegal by the Fraud and Death Association. You all know the Fraud and Death Association, and so they made it illegal, or what they did is they made it so compounding pharmacists can't make it anymore. So the only two ways that you can get it, if you find a compounding pharmacy to make it, are going to be very difficult to. They're metabolized too quickly, and you don't really ever get to the target. So it's very, very difficult. So for a while, I was using with insulin potentiated curcumin therapy. So it's using that to try to target it, and so that's how I was doing it. And I was doing it with any botanical like Boswellia or quercetin, any of them. We would use insulin potentiated botanical therapies because it doesn't have to be a chemo. Now, so now there's an oncologist at Lenox Hill in New York City who's getting amazing results. Tumors are going away using intravenous liposomal curcumin. And Normally, when we think of liposomal, we do it orally, and the reason we're doing it orally is so that we can bypass the gut, the guts. Uh, Perhaps the gut is not going to be that efficient at absorbing large amounts because it has, for example, like vitamin C, it won't really absorb. It'll absorb up to 500 milligrams of vitamin C, but 200. If you take 200 milligrams, it'll absorb 100% of it. But then anything after that, you're going to lose some in the urine. And 500 milligrams is the last amount that it would absorb to some degree, and then after that, it all goes in the urine. So that's the gut. It's got those limitations. So you take liposomal, when you put it in the fat, it's actually in a little nano-sized bubble, and you eat that, and then instead of it going through your digestive tract and getting absorbed directly through the small intestine, it goes into the lymphatics. It's called the lacteal system and into your lymph, and you can take larger amounts, right? So that's called liposomal. That's why we usually use liposomal. But in this case, and what's been happening a lot with in conventional oncology is that they're using liposomal intravenous therapies to deliver chemotherapies to which seem to have less side effects, middle effects, all over you effects. Yeah. So so liposomal curcumin it's really pretty amazing. So what happens is it doesn't get metabolized that quickly, and you can get it into the tumor. Now imagine if you used insulin and the liposome would be fantastic. But so where do we get that? That's the question. There's none of the compounding pharmacies are compounding it. I can't find any. And I talked to that oncologist, and they won't let us have it. So we got to find a compounding pharmacist who's willing to make that for us. So that's the only way you can really do that. Where were we? Yeah, so that's it. And then the vitamin C, remember, you don't want to give IV vitamin, well, you can, but if you're giving IV vitamin C and the person is not taking it orally every day, at least 8 grams in small amounts throughout the day. So if it's liposomal, take 2 grams 4 times a day. If it's not liposomal, if it's sodium ascorbate, not ascorbic acid, sodium ascorbate powder, you put 8 grams in a liter of water like this. Yeah, and then sip it real slowly, and it's got to last 12 hours. So you know those are going to be small sips, and the reason we want that, so sip 7 to 7, the reason we want that is so that we can be assured that we're probably going to get around 200, 300 milligrams, and we're going to absorb the vast majority of it. But we're going to take sips throughout the day. So each time you can only absorb that. That's one way to do it. It's a little more, laborious. You have to keep, not laborious, but a little more. You got to keep your mind on it. Or you can do the liposomal or both. Yeah. And so if you're getting enough ascorbates in your diet, then when you sit down to get the IV, it does not have to fill up a deficit. It goes directly up into the pro-oxidative concentration in your plasma, in your blood. And that's what you want. Otherwise, if you're not taking it and you are hypoascorbic, like everyone is, most people, then that IV will fill up the deficit first, and then it won't get up to oxidative levels. But remember, you don't only want the oxidative effects of ascorbic acid, vitamin C ascorbate. You want to get even the physiological, because that does so many things, which we'll talk about in the vitamin C webinar. This is Carmen. Dr. Lodi, diagnosis, pulmonary carcinosarcoma, stage 4. I'm 58 years, and my question is, what is the rate of healing with your protocol for this diagnosis? Okay, so endocarcinosarcoma is actually endometrial carcinosarcoma. And this is, again, remember, the only difference between all of these CFCs is the location in which they originate. However, the biology is the same. In order for it to be called that word, in order for it to become a chronically fermenting cell, that which is what it is, it had to have lost its ability to use oxygen. I mean, lost its mitochondria. It doesn't matter where it started, elbow, anyway. So in the what they're calling the endometrial carcinosarcoma. Whoa. Okay. Endometrial means we're talking about the lining of the uterus. Okay. Carcino refers to the fact that it is of epithelial origin. In other words, it's originates from in the fetus originates from the ectoderm. Uh, so all carcinomas, which are the breast, colon, pancreas, uterus, most of the time ovary, they're all carcinomas because they're starting in tissues that are called epithelial tissues. Now, the carcinosarcoma means that there's also sarcoma, means it's also affecting cells that originate in the mesoderm of the fetus, which is this middle part. So you got the inside. So when you have a fetus, that fundamentally you've got an outside, a middle, and an inside. Ecto, endo, and then meso. Ecto, endo, meso. So the mesoderm produces, um, you know, muscle, bone, uh, things like that. All right. Whereas the ecto produces other stuff. So what would that mean in this particular case? We're talking about the endometrium, the lining of the uterus. So it's not only the lining of the uterus, which would be glands, which would be a carcinoma, but it's also involving some of the muscle in the uterus called the myometrium, right? And so so in other words, the CFCs began either they began in one or the other, either in the muscle or the epithelial cells, or and then it spread contiguously to the other, or it began in both at the same time. But and it doesn't matter. But since it's involving those two, that's why they call it that. So stage 4 means it's already gone into another organ. That's what stage 4 means. Now, your question, excuse me, your specific question of what the rate of healing is. I think what you're asking, what can you do? And excuse me. Anyway, I was just looking at one of the questions here. Sorry for getting distracted. Well, first of all, you got to realize that. I mean, I'm not sure what's happened already. If you've probably had surgery, they probably removed uterus, fallopian tubes, ovaries, and if they found any in your parent. Did you say peritoneum? Pulmonary endocarcinosarcoma. Okay, so pulmonary, you're meaning that it has spread to the lungs. Because if you have the word endo in there, it refers to endometrium, and that is uterus. So it must have spread to the lungs, where they must have removed it. I've removed the uterus. I'm not sure of your situation, but if you need to find a really competent integrative oncologist and get away from those people, because they already know you're not going to make it. And I'm here to tell you that you absolutely can. So you don't want to be around people who have that attitude. You want to be around people who know you can do it, know that it can happen. All right. Because if anyway, first of all, the fact of thinking that way, then you're probably thinking, well, it doesn't matter what we do, blah, 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 blah. that attitude. But also, we know that 90% of human communication is nonverbal. And so when someone's looking at us with the eyes like that, we feel it. Just like when you're talking to someone and there's somebody 10 feet behind you staring at you, you feel it. You turn around, right? We've got, we're, um, we've got antennae all over the place. All right. So anyway, we're picking up messages all over, everywhere, you know. Um, that's why, when you're at if you're at a baseball game and everybody's excited, you're picking up all those messages, right? And you might get excited just because everyone's excited, or everyone's laughing, you might laugh, or so we're very much affected by the obvious stuff, but we're also affected on a very subtle levels that we're not even aware of. And so you don't want to be in an environment where they're already looking at you in that way. You don't want to be seen that way, okay? Because that affects your mind, subconscious, which directly affects your immune system, which causes it to suppress. Immunosuppression, not really good, not healthy, not what you want. So you need to find yourself a good. I don't know where you live, but so you got it. That's number one. And anyway, um, so you do the same things that everyone else does, because remember, we're talking about the same condition, right? Chronically fermenting cells, regardless of the origin. All right, that is, we start with uh, the gastrointestinal tract, which begins at the lips and ends at the anus. So you begin what you get teeth. Got to go to a biological dentist. It's always the same story. 3D cone beam, CT. Find out if there are any root canals, cavitations, any other anything else going on, and get those get that cleaned out. And you got to do a thorough cleanse of the body, which is a juice cleanse. Drinking only juice for as long as you can, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, minimum 3 weeks. You just do it. You'll feel so fantastic. You'll feel better. You'll get your energy back. It's going to clean the water in the aquarium. That's it. You do that, and then you're starting with all the other things we're talking about. You're getting your colon cleaned. You're getting lymphatic work. You're doing movement. You're learning to turn the mind off through meditation and prayer. Prayer is not turning it off, but meditation is. So prayer is asking the question. Meditation is listening for the answer. Um, and you are taking the things that we've always discussed, sodium ascorbate, the way we were just mentioning ago, until your fasting ascorbate level is about 2.7 milligrams per deciliter, which is about 50 micromoles per liter. That's a good, healthy fasting ascorbate. You want to get that up to there, because what does that do? It turns off CFCs. It's amazing. You'll be like blown away when we finally have that vitamin C lecture webinar. Do that. You got to take enough vitamin A, mixed carotenoids, until you get your level up to the upper limits of whatever the reference range is. The upper limits, the last couple numbers. And vitamin D, you want to get your numbers up to vitamin D3. You want to get your numbers up to about 100. Keep them there. And if you go over, don't worry about it. Melatonin, then you want to balance your thyroid and adrenals, and get iodine. So there's a lot. Those are the things you have to do. You have to go to bed early. You have to, after the end of the juice cleanse, you're going to eat human food. Um, Stay well hydrated. Move around, move around, move around. All right. So that's it. And um, don't be mesmerized or hypnotized by the name. It's got a long name. Pulmonary what is it? Carcinosarcoma. It sounds like, oh my God. No worries. Doesn't matter what they're going to call it. What matters is what's going on. And what's going on is you've got some chronically fermented cells that started in the uterus, where the muscle and the epithelial cells are they're like into each other anyway. So it's not a weird thing that happened. It's like, wow. It's just so just look at it that understand that's what it is. That's all it is. It's nothing more. Okay, it's nothing more. It's not this and then they always say the prognosis. The prognosis is what is the prognosis? What is the prognosis? It's them guessing the future. And they're guessing the future based upon two things. What they've read, and what they've read is how did they get there through usually biased research. And I'll challenge anybody on who says that the research is not balanced. Whole discussion on that. And otherwise, and what they've seen. And what have they seen? They've seen what happens to people when they treat them. They don't see what happens to people when they don't treat them because they're not around. So they really only know what happens to people that they treat. So when they tell you if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you'll be dead, they are imagining that's the truth, because if someone's not doing X, Y, and Z, which is what they do, they give X, Y, and Z. They're not there doing it. They're not around. They don't know. How can you say anything about people you don't know that are there? You can't. So, when they say, if you don't do this, you ask them, oh, well, yeah, how do you, if I don't do it? You mean everyone that's not done it came back and told you what happened? Or they report somewhere to a special place? The I didn't do it department. I didn't get treated, but let me report my progress. Huh? Anyway, bizarre. All right, now, this is Michelle. I'm stage 4 non-small lung CFCs, EGFR 19th deletion with T53 mutation, metastasis to pleura and lymph nodes. Took Tagrisso for half a year. Main tumor shrank 65%. Went to surgery, then chemo and radiation. All my metastatic sites. Never been detected by PET scans or CTs. My surgeon found them during surgery. So 2 years in remission. This Friday's PET scan showed punctate focal hypermetabolism at the porta hepatis posterior surface of the left hepatic lobe. Suggested metastasis to liver. The location of the site is pretty tricky for treatment. Please help. All right, now, you've got lots of words to describe it. In the EGFR 19th deletion, the T53 mutation. Okay. Usually these are not mutations, but they're silenced. T53, which is the tumor suppressor. It's the main tumor suppressor gene. It's called the guardian of the genome, and it is silenced when a cell is turning over and becoming a oxidative phosphorylation OXPHOS cell into a fermentation cell. When it does it, the reason it does it, because turning that down helps keep things going. It helps them. It improves and makes fermentation more effective. So that's like all of the epigenetic changes that occur in that CFCs present in their when they modify their epigenetic epigenome, right? So then they turn this off, they turn that on, All those modifications are to support a more effective fermentation. If you can make the fermentation more effective, then the cell can survive. Otherwise, it can't, because with fermentation, you're only getting 1/19th of 1/20th, like 5% of the um, energy from glucose. That doesn't cut it. So what do? You need 19 times more glucose. And so that's what happens. So everything in the cell is turned on to give me more. I got to get more glucose in here, so I upregulate, get more insulin receptors. I get more uh, beta glucosidases, and a lot of things that are turned on, and then a lot of things that are turned off. And things that are turned off, and things that are turned on are what they call oncogenes, as if they were the ones that did cause the problem. They're not. They are a downstream epiphenomenon. They are a result of. So, um, yeah. Anyway, so that's so. Don't even go there with their deletions, because if you buy into that, you're gonna think, oh, I have mutations. Not a thing I can do about it. That is not the case. These situations can be turned back on, and they can get reawakened. And if they get reawakened, that means they weren't dead, they weren't gone, they were asleep, they were silenced. I'm telling you, they can. It's in the research. It's in the literature. Um, so a mutation would be something like trisomy 21, called Down syndrome. All right, and no matter what you do, they still have Down syndrome. All right, that's mutation. Okay. Anyway, uh, so again, Michelle, you're on a journey. You're on their journey. You asked the general. You talked to a general, and the general said, "We're going to go to war against this tumor," and that's what you're doing. You're going to war against the tumor, not forgetting the reality that this tumor is an apple on the tree. And why is that? Why are we having apples on this tree? Uh, well, why are we having poison apples on this tree? Why? Right? So we can cut off all the apples, but we're going to have a new harvest. It's going to keep coming every fall. We're going to get new apples. So just cutting them off is not going to do it. Just attacking them is not going to do it. What we got to do is we got to make sure this doesn't keep happening. That's what we got to do. And how do we do that? By restoring the balance, get clean soil, clean out the tree, so that the pathway are all clear, and we produce delicious, wonderful apples instead of poisonous apples. Okay, and if we don't do that, if we just keep cutting them off, they're going to keep coming back. So somewhere the problem is in the soil, in the trunk of the tree, or whatever. That's where we got to put our attention. Now, when the apple gets too big and it's can't breathe, you're blocking your bowels, whatever, then you got to do something drastic like that. If you're not at that point, you don't have to. And you're going to find out that regardless of what they say, regardless of what they claim that you have to do, you haven't stopped the process. Therefore, you're going to wind up with these focal punctate focal hypermetabolism. What does that mean? Small little punctate. Looks like it's just a description of how it looks. Uh, Hypermetabolism is using more glucose. That's what hypermetabolism is, because the PET scan is they injected fluorodeoxyglucose, which is radioactive glucose, um, and that's where it lit up, and that looks like they're using more. Why are they using more? Because they're fermenting. Why? That's it. That's it. So the process hasn't stopped. And if you get rid of those, there'll be more somewhere else. So that can no longer be your goal, and you must realize it by now that that's not my goal. My goal is to make sure that I stop making these crazy things. Right? Yes. That's where we go to the mouth. You got to find a biological. I don't know where you live, but I would get in touch with Dr. Emma Abramayan in Glendale and get her on making a tele appointment, whatever it is, and she's going to tell you to get a 3D cone beam CT, and then you get that to her so she can read it and she can tell you what's necessary. And if you've got the wherewithal, I would get over there to her. That's what I would do. You're talking about your life, so why consider that someone else might be as good? Just go for it. go there. That's what I would do. Or ask, and then ask her if there's anyone she would go to around where you live. But anyway, get her to read that. Okay, very, very important. Okay, got to see her. Got to take care of that, because if you don't, and that's the reason, then you'll never unplug this process. And then you got to cleanse your body. You've got to cleanse your body. You got to cleanse your body, and you got to get rid of all the toxins. Remember, it's the cumulative toxins that result in damaging the cells in our body. So the cells in our body are swimming in something called the extracellular matrix, or the interstitial fluid, which is the non-cellular part of the blood. When I say non-cellular, what are cells in the blood? There are red blood cells and white blood cells. Okay, that's right. And then there are platelets. They're not really cells, but anyway. So those are the cellular or particulate components. The rest of the blood is plasma. Okay, so when the blood is going through the arteries, a little then smaller into the arterioles, and it finally gets to the capillaries, and there's the red blood cells are squeezing in there, and then through diffusion through the capillaries into the interstitial fluid go the nutrients and oxygen and stuff like that, and all the stuff that the metabolic waste are coming back up and going out. And so 90% of it goes out in that pathway to the blood, to the veins. The arteries brought it into the veins, and 10% of the waste is going through or not just waste. It's also good stuff. It's just passing through what didn't get used also. So, and it's got hormones. It's got all the stuff that's in our blood. 10% goes into the lymphatics, all right? And the lymphatics vessels go right to the lymph nodes, so that the lymph node can say, what's up here? Is this a friend or a foe? And if it's not on our side, we've got to develop an immunological response, and that's where it's developed, is in the lymph nodes, which are not, by the way, stuff you just take out, throw away, and go, oh, we go, take them all out. No. Okay, very, very important. All right, now, so 90% in the veins, 10% in the lymphatics. All right, so now, but it's where the capillaries are that the fusion occurs, and you've got that interstitial fluid. So the interstitial fluid, that ocean in which the cells are living, their environment consists of everything that was in the blood that's not red blood cells, white blood cells, or platelets, and that is what? All the hormones you make, all the nutrients you've eaten, all the toxins you've eaten, and the oxygen you breathed in, as well as maybe the carbon monoxide you breathed in. And if you're downtown Mexico or LA or New York or Chicago or whatever, you breathe in a lot of other stuff. So all of that's in. The stuff that's come through your skin. All right. All that. As well as what the body has produced. It's producing peptides and proteins, and producing steroid hormones. It's producing all sorts of things. So you got all of that in there. And then you've got all of the metabolic waste, the waste that cells are producing that haven't been eliminated. So that is the aquarium, or the aquarium in which your cells are living. And your cells are responding to that. That's what they do. Cells respond to their environment. And for all the different potential responses a cell can make, it's got a toolbox there. And that toolbox is called DNA. And so if it needs a certain response, that signal goes to the DNA. DNA says, here's that, you need one of these, you need one of that, and that's how it works. So that interstitial fluid, we want to make it have no toxins. And we want to make sure it's got fantastic nutrients and lots of oxygen. That's what we want to do. So that's our goal. Our goal is to make the interstitial fluid pristine, beautiful, sweet. Has all the stuff that we do need and none of the stuff that we don't need. How do we accomplish that? We just flood it through. How do we flood it through? We use juice, vegetable juice with enough fruit to make it delicious, and we just flood. We take 3 quarts a day if you can, or whatever you can drink all day long until you're peeing all day long. I would recommend you start drinking from the moment you wake up, and then you stop at 5 p.m. so that you don't pee all night. And it's going to be a struggle, a psychological struggle for 3 days, 4 days maybe, and then you're going to wind up in the land of I'm not hungry, I'm fine, right? And that's it. Yeah, yeah. Uh, and you do that for a long time, 3 weeks. Plus, you got to remember all these juices, green juices, etc., are going to be having minerals like magnesium, calcium, all that, which are what alkalinizing. They're going to cause your body to become alkalinized. Alkalinized. So, and you get all the phytonutrients, right? All the fantastic phytonutrients and the chelated minerals. And so you're going to have everything in the juice in this juice except for fiber and fat. So it's extremely nutritious, and it's got enzymes. It's alive, and it's got fluid. It's mostly water, so you're going to be well hydrated. It's just like wow. Okay, so it's a chance to change the water in the aquarium so the fish don't keep getting sick. Easy. Easy to understand, not easy to do. But easy to do once you realize that's the only thing to do. And then when you realize that when you do it, instead of having side effects, you have side benefits like increased energy, clarity, uh, optimism. You just feel good. And so that's what you do. And you clean out the colon. Why do you clean out the colon? Well, clean it out and you'll see what's there and you'll understand why you cleaned it out. And I've never seen anyone who got a colonic who said, you know what, I think I made a mistake. Can I get that back? Never heard anyone say that. So I'm assuming that most people would agree, right? I don't want to do a colonic. I don't want to lose too much weight. Say what? You don't want to lose weight. I get that. You're including feces in that. So anyway, this whole thing people have about cleaning my colon. That's a one-way street, buddy. Okay, well, so well, it hasn't been a one-way street very much. I think there's a lot of blockage in there. You got traffic backed up all the way to the mountains. So the only way we can get that traffic is to take out some of them boulders. So we're gonna have to reach in there with some. Instead of reaching in there, we just put some water in there and then bring those boulders out so that the traffic's not jammed up. Anyway, so all this stuff is actually pretty common sense. I mean, I don't know why we call it common sense. What should we call it? With clear eyes, with unbiased eyes, it's the obvious. It's what a child sees. All right. Anyway. Yeah. So these focal hypermetabolic lesions that are on your, your porta hepatis on the posterior surface, that's just the portal vein that's draining. Draining your intestines, the blood. Remember, we talked about 90% of the blood goes through there, goes through the portal vein. The portal vein goes into the liver, and then the liver detoxifies whatever is there. But liver's working hard, and so you want to clean that up. You got to clean your colon out because your colon, every 4 minutes, your colon is water. Colon is drained, goes into those blood vessels, which go into the porta hepatis, which goes into the liver. Now, that means sewage every 4 minutes, called enterohepatic circulation. Every 4 minutes, it goes into the liver. So imagine your poor liver and your portal vein every 4 minutes is getting a big splash of sewage. Let's clean the sewage out so that doesn't happen. And that'll give those little punctate lesions a chance to not be toxic anymore, and we can begin to stop this process. So all of this stuff comes down to eliminate toxins, clean, and provide only nutrients. What are nutrients? Substances that can be turned into either flesh and blood or energy. Now, next one, Amy. I had a dark field blood test and saw all these rouleaux in my blood. I'm freaking out a bit. I did not take any COVID shots. but did have a nose swab, just a shallow one in the nostril for travel during the time. Could I have been unknowingly exposed to the COVID shot substance? Or would shedding result in this? Would anything else cause rouleau? What could I do to bring my red blood cells back to normal distribution? Thanks very much. Okay, Amy, whoever did your dark field microscopy didn't tell you much. I don't think there's anybody, there might be a couple people, maybe the Hunza, where you do a finger stick and you don't find rouleau. Why do we have rouleau? What does rouleau mean? Well, it's a French word meaning roll. So red blood cells, normally, red blood cells, which carry the oxygen, okay, they're called biconcave discs. They're a disc and biconcave, so they've got an indent this way, and on the other side, biconcave, right? So they have a central. Why do they have that? So they can have hemoglobin in there to carry all the oxygen, because that's their job. They are couriers carrying oxygen. That's their job. So they had to clean out some stuff so that because they're not like a regular cell, which has a big center area. So what did they eliminate? The nucleus, the DNA. They don't have no DNA. They also don't have any mitochondria. So they have to. Am I live now? You me? Talking to me? Yeah, I'm like, I think so. Yeah, it's still alive. Yeah. No mitochondria, no nucleus, so that we can fit in all that oxygen. And also, if you got a biconcave disc like that, it can squirm and bend and make it into those capillaries and get to places another cell couldn't do. So there's a good reason for it. But think about it. So this red blood cell is fermenting. That's how it's making energy. And it's got no nucleus. So the nucleus must not be the brains, because nothing can live without a brain, right? It's not the brains. So what? So is that why red blood cells only live 120 days? Yeah. But they do live 120 days without a brain. So that's not the brain, obviously, the nucleus, so the DNA. So why do they die finally? They run out of parts. They lost the parts department. What's the parts department? The DNA. It's the parts department. They run out of parts. Anyway, they normally all have a positive charge. And two positives repel each other. All right? So if you look at you do a finger stick and you look at the blood under a microscope, dark field. The only difference between a dark field and the irregular microscope is the irregular microscope is a light field, meaning there's light behind it. And that is, you can't see a lot of things. Just like looking out a window with the lights on, you don't see a lot of things because of the glare. So you make it a dark field, and now you can see stuff. And it was invented. The road leading to the invention of the dark field was basically to see if they could were able to visualize syphilis, and they were. Syphilis is a spirochete microorganism. Spirochete means it's like a screw, like those spaghettis. What do they call them? What's the name of the spaghetti, everybody? Anyway. But anyway, that's what a spirochete looks like, and you can see it on dark field. What else is a spirochete? Anybody know? What is limes? Yeah, limes is a spirochete. Anyway, that's why they came up with dark fields, and they have a dark field. No, not the fettuccine. The fettuccine is like long, thin ones. Those little curly ones. No. Um, anyway, uh, the dark field. Okay, so anyway, with the dark field, you can see a lot more. Anyway, with the dark field, in fact, any disturbance in the pH of the blood, any disturbance in, lots of things, any toxicity or anything like that, or loss of like dehydration, not enough water, and all that, will cause rouleau. So rouleau is very common. In fact, if you took the average person um, and brought them into a clinic with dark field after they had the average breakfast, and you did the finger stick, you'd see rouleau. Now it depends on what they had for breakfast. If they had bacon and eggs, sausage and eggs, they had just eggs and hash browns, or with pancakes, or whatever, toast. You're gonna definitely see some rouleau there. If they had a big fresh green juice or ate some fruit, you're not gonna see rouleau, unless the person's really sick already. So rouleaus come and go, and the reason rouleau is a problem is because, remember, we were talking about the red blood cells have to negotiate those little tiny spaces, go through the capillaries. Well, if they're all in a row, plus if they're in a row, they're not carrying oxygen, right? Because this one's sitting on top of it, and you can't get the oxygen on there. And if you do have the oxygen on there, they're not going to go anywhere, and they can't deliver it. So it's not a good condition to be in. So you want them to all be separated. Yeah. So does it have anything to do with COVID? No, because there was rouleau in 2019, 2018, 2012, 1930. Yeah. Okay. So whoever did your uh, dark field didn't tell you much at all. And for that reason, I'd go somewhere else alone, because that's a lot. For it to leave you scared like you have been because you didn't understand the most simplest, basic thing one would see on a dark field is not cool. Stay well hydrated, eat foods that are alkaline, stop eating 4 or 5 hours before you go to sleep, keep your bowels clean, and stay well hydrated, eat real food, which is living plants, uh, and you won't have rouleau. All right, so now where are we? Now we're with Sally, who says, "What is the best through test? A thorough test for gut issues. What is the process, treatment, then to test to see if H. pylori is resolved?" All right, so gut issues is what is not the same as just H. pylori. So the gut, remember, we're talking about the gut. I guess it's the gastrointestinal system from lips to anus. However, with this, we're talking about gut. I guess the gut starts at your esophagus. Yeah. All right. So let's say from the top of your esophagus down to your anus would be the gut. So gut issues can be anything. It can be colon, small intestine, stomach, esophagus. However, if you're talking about H. pylori, that problem is usually stomach. So H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori, is a microorganism that like is able to live in an extremely acidic environment. Remember, the pH of a healthy human is 1.5, which is enough just to take off, clean down to the bone, get your, it's pretty strong acid. So, um, anyway, they're associated with ulcers and they're associated with stomach CFCs. Associated. Um, and a lot of ulcers and the burning pain and all that. So to see if you have them, the classic way that they look for H. pylori is to do through endoscopy with your gastroenterologist. It goes down and takes biopsies. That's one. The other one you can do, they can do a breath test, and they can see some of the metabolites produced by them, and a breath test can tell you that as well. But you don't really now having H. pylori means that there is not a healthy distribution of all the microorganisms in your gastrointestinal tract. Your microbiota is not balanced, not harmonically, not in the right proportions. So we need to restore a healthy biosis. Bio, life, osis, condition of biosis. Okay, and we don't want a dysbiosis because that means it's not a healthy distribution. And the way we do that is by feeding the ones we want to live there, because whoever you're feeding will live there, right? And the healthy ones only eat plants. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm not sorry. I'm just sorry for you because you have to hear it this way. You have to hear it over and over and over and over again. But anyway, it's just the way it is. So you want to feed these guys, you want to have these guys, you've got to feed them what they need. And that's what they need, okay? They need plants. So you've got to change your diet, all that sort of thing. Now, you got an overgrowth of H. pylori, and you probably were put on triple antibiotics, which means you tried to kill it, and they killed it all along. But if you didn't have healthy neighbors, then you would have had other unhealthy. When I say healthy, I mean health producing. So they're all healthy in themselves. They're having a good time. But you want a relative proportion of microorganisms that support your physiology so that your immune system works well, so that all the things that the micro organisms contribute to our health. I mean, they make our serotonin. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. So to have that healthy distribution, you've got to be feeding them. But if you're feeding these guys, then you're gonna have more of these than those. Okay? So what you feed them, remember that. Mangia pia mangia. There we go. I can move that there, and I go, wait. Let me move this here. Yay. Okay, so. All right, so. Again, so you've got triple antibiotics. Next time, if this ever happens again, you could get to Natural Immunogenics, who has a Argentin 23, which is a colloidal silver that's amazing and doesn't result in argyria, which is a blue head. You don't want a blue head. But a tablespoon of that every couple hours, and you get rid of it without wiping out your own natural healthy organisms, right? Yeah. And you want to restore everything. So before eating, you're going to take the hydrochloric acid, and then at the end of the meal, you're going to take enzymes that have a lot of cellulase. You're going to go to transformation because they have different kinds, and the one I use is called Digestzyme. And I don't, I have no affiliations. By the way, I don't hold stock in anything because I don't have stock in anything at all. And I don't own any land, and I don't, I'm not part of that big commercial world. So I'm not, whenever I'm talking about a product, it's because I use it or I looked at it, or if it's a specific product, it's because I found out that it's really the best I could find, right? So like when I was looking at opening up the microcirculation, I used to talk about Beamer. Yeah, it's a product, and no, I don't have any stock in the company or anything like that. But now there's the Cloud, which was made by I think the son or something of the guy that originally came up with the Beamer, the Cloud, Kloud, and that is supposed. I haven't had a chance to use it yet, but that's supposed to be doing what the Beamer did, opening up the microcirculation, which is amazing, and other things as well. So, but anyway, in terms of products and stuff. Other than that, I talk about substances like hydrochloric acid. But if I, like in this case with the enzymes, I said transformation because when I was whenever I'm looking for anything, any supplement, I want to know a few things. I want to know, are the original ingredients organic, and can they prove it? Number two, in the processing of whatever that is they're producing, is it done with heat or cold? Because if it's done with heat, it's going to destroy the enzymes and blah, blah, blah. So organic and cold processed, good. We've got a good chance. Let's check it out. Okay. So now, when it comes to enzymes, though, and other things as well, we should do this. We should say, okay, now let's see if we can actually prove that it's doing what we claim it will do. It's called research. So, for example, if I were going to produce probiotics and sell them, I would get a group of people to have them do a stool test. So, by the way, we're talking about the stool, right? So, I'd have them still with your the question about the H. pylori. But if you wanted to really find out what's going on with your gut, you could do what's called a comprehensive digestive stool analysis, CDSA, comprehensive digestive stool analysis. It used to be done by I don't know. Then the company became Genova, and I don't know what it is now. I've been away too long, but from the U.S. So, but anyway, is it Genova? I don't know. I don't know what the name of the company is anymore. But anyway, and there are probably other ones doing it now as well. Comprehensive digestive stool analysis is to give them a few samples of your stool over like a 24-hour period, or whatever, 2 days, and they can tell you if you're not making enough of certain enzymes, or you don't have enough bile, you're not digesting the fat. They can tell you what microorganisms and parasites are in there, and all that. So it's a very, very I think the best way to test the gut, right? And it's non-invasive, it's non-toxic. But anyway, so if I were gonna be selling probiotics, I'd say, okay, so here's how I got these 50 people, and we got all their stool, and we see what's in there. Now we're going to give them these probiotics, and 4 weeks and 8 weeks and 12 weeks, we're going to check their stool and see what they have. Okay, and if we've changed their microflora, we'll see or not. That would be like, then you could say on your package, you could say, hey, this is real. Here's a study. Nobody does those things. Well, somebody does it with enzymes. That's called transformation. They do these studies, and you can see that. Oh yeah, I like that. What and they've got these different combinations of enzymes for different diets. So the one I'm suggesting is digestive. Got a lot of side effects. So you take that at the end of the meal. And I do the comprehensive digestive stool analysis. Clean your colon out. Go on a juice cleanse. Allow your colon, like we were talking about, clean it out. Clean it out. Enemas and colonics. 2 colonics a week for 10 weeks. Then 1 colonic a week for 10 weeks. Then 1 colonic twice a month. Unless you become like Paul Nissan or Donna Peroni, or the king of them all. What's his name? Where my brain today? I've lost the convolutions. Fred Bish. So Donna has been 100% raw, vegan, uncooked plants, probably, I don't know, 35 years now. Paul Nissan, same thing. Fred Bishi, 57 years. How old is Fred now? 97. Completely fine. Completely normal. Yeah. Anyway. Now, So in terms of testing, Sally, that's comprehensive digestive stool analysis and forget H. pylori. You'll know if you have it. I mean, because you don't. Okay, you can do the breath test. They also look for antibodies, do blood antibody testing, and all that sort of thing. But here's the thing: if it says no, if it says you're clean and you've got burning pain, you say, or if it says yes, you have them and you feel fine. So I don't rely on tests. You are the final test, and for that. But to know how your gut's working and all that, that's comprehensive digestive system. Okay, here's Kira, and what time is it? Are we okay, you guys? Are we okay, you guys? Let me see what. Go away. Yeah. Are we? What time is it? Yeah. We're still okay after all these years. What? All right. Okay. Go. All right. So now, uh, 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 this is Kira. She says we've got returning Ewing sarcoma. It's everywhere. Where do we start? The patient is 18 years old, very active and ready to entertain something other than chemotherapy. Okay. All right. So, for those of you who don't know, Ewing sarcoma is a bone CFC. Happens in young people usually. And so you've learned, Kira, and your 18-year-old person there, that burning, cutting, and all that stuff doesn't work. Doesn't work. Comes back. It's not that it comes back. It doesn't go away. Anyway, so going to do the same thing that everybody did. We're talking about with the biological dentist. Got to go to sleep early. Happy Christmas, everyone. Thank you. And Hanukkah. It's spelled with a, isn't it spelled with a CH? Happy Hanukkah and happy winter solstice. And happy to be alive. We're passing through another year. Here it comes, right? And so we know that calendars and stuff. I don't know. I mean, December comes around way too frequently, not recently. Haven't you noticed that in the last few years? Anyway, you got to do all that cleansing I'm talking about and all that stuff. You got to make sure you don't. And by the way, I forgot to mention there. You've got to do parasite cleanse because we all have parasites. Yes, we do. We all have parasites, and we've got to do parasite cleanses. And the parasite cleanse is 3 weeks on and 1 week off. 3 weeks on and 1 week off. So you have CFCs. You're going to want to do that for 12 cycles. Off 3 on, 1 off, 3 on, 1 off. If you don't have CFCs, if your husband and wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or mother, anybody that you're close to physically, there's a good question. Don't let me not answer this one here. It's one of my favorite questions that I've answered 758 million times. The question is meat okay to have? I'm confused. Okay, well, who's that? Joey, don't be confused. I'm going to unconfuse you, hopefully. Okay. Parasites. We all have parasites, so you're going to do 3 anti-worms, anti-helminthics, and you're going to do at least 1 or 2 anti-protozoals, and then you can throw in some antifungals. And you do 3 weeks on and 1 week off for many reasons. One is you got to give your liver a break because your liver has to metabolize all this stuff. Number 1. Number 2, because they're laying up to 70,000 eggs a day, and each egg can become up to 70,000 worms. You're talking about right? So you got to let them 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and then bam, You got to keep doing that. It's a rolling thing, right? It's the only way to get them. You're not going to do it in one shot. It's not going to work because they're eggs, millions, maybe billions of eggs all over the place. They're going to hatch, and then they're going to hatch, and they're going to hatch. And so 12 times is just a guess. We don't know. It could take longer for you. And then you're going to do maintenance every year. Someone who's a spouse or friend or whatever, maybe do it for 3 to 6 cycles. All right, so we have to do that too. So with the sarcomas, you got to do that. With this Ewing, it's sarcoma, right? It's a bone. Remember, bone and muscle are sarcomas, not carcinomas. Parasites, cleansing, all the things we talked about. Now, in terms of therapies, same ones, because it's the same thing. It's just happening in the bone. And the reason it's called Ewing's is because Dr. Ewing described it. Dr. Ewing, living around the same time, the turn of the 20th century, right around the time that Dr. what's his name was William Coley at Memorial Hospital, later became Sloan Kettering Memorial Hospital. And then that's when they were starting to use using X-rays and stuff like that. So that's at that time. So Ewing sarcoma, that's what it is. It's got his name. It doesn't mean anything. It's just his name. Long after he's gone, it will be remembered as having described a particular constellation of situation of histology and all that from chronically fermenting cells in the bones that happens to occur in young people for some reason. Now, so we got to do the same things. We can use it's the same thing. It's not ever different. So please, you've got to understand that you got to need the high doses of mixed carotenoids, so you get your levels of your vitamin A levels up to the top of the reference range. You got to get your ascorbate so that your levels are at you have a fasting ascorbate of 50 millimoles per liter, micromoles per liter minimum, and which is about 2.8 milligrams per deciliter. And your vitamin D3 has got to be up to at least around 100. You got to do the iodine and the thyroid, get those balanced. You got to check out your adrenals, AM and PM adrenal. You got to make sure your DHEA to cortisol level is about 15 to 1. And you want to balance your hormones. You got to bring your hormones into balance. And you got to take melatonin up to 180 milligrams at night when you sleep. You'll work your way up to it. You're not going to do it tonight. And you want to take Balasta. Balasta is going to give you tons and tons and tons of electrons, which CFCs hate. Well, they need them to survive, but they also hate them because they're not able to protect themselves. So Balasta, 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 Balasta. As you're doing all that, and you're also learning to turn off the naysayer that lives inside between your ears, the naysayer, that naysayer. There's ozone therapies, there's vitamin C therapies, there's artesunate therapies. You need to get into a good integrative doctor who knows what they're doing. And what I'm gonna do? I have it's a Singapore-based company called Institute of Integrative Oncology, and I'm going to be training and certifying doctors who want to do this kind of work. And then I'll have a list up there, and you can see who's trained, who's not trained, and that's going to be fantastic. I just got to get that together now. So now, All that being said, some amazing work being done with one of the antiparasitics, Kira. It's called niclosamide, one of the antiparasitics, niclosamide. You can go to niclosam.com, niclosam.com. You get high doses. So 500 milligrams 3 times a day for a short time, and then you're going to go to 1,000 milligrams and maybe even 1,500 milligrams 3 times a day. It's what they're saying. I'm not sure about your son. I don't know, or your daughter or son. I don't know their situation, but that's what I'm doing with someone else is that. So you want to get high doses because guess what? Look up niclosamide and bone CFCs. You'll be very happy to see that. So you want to get the niclosamide up there. Some of the other antiparasitics do the same thing, but this is the one that has drawn the greatest attention. Right? So that's that. But don't just do that. Do everything I said, everything. And remember, all of their statistics is based on people who follow their instructions. All right, now, is meat okay to have? I'm confused. We've got to clarify this question. Okay, for who to have? And what is meat? Again, meat is, well, in English, originally it actually means, and we use it that way too, it means essence, right? What's the, someone might say, well, what's the, he gave a lecture, but what's the meat of the subject? What's the essence of the subject? So we have a lot of coconuts around here, and I always eat the meat of the coconut. So if we were to look at what's on people's plates, and we see that they have the dead muscles of an animal, of a deceased animal, a murdered animal. So we have the muscle, we have the dead muscles of a murdered animal. I don't consider that the essence of the animal, so I wouldn't call it meat. I would call it corpse. Was there another word? Corpus. Corpse. It's a corpse. Yeah. So okay. So the question again is: Are corpses okay to eat? I mean, I'm sure. Oh, are corpses okay to eat? Now, are corpses okay to eat? Yeah. Well, it depends on again what species we're talking about. So, talking about canines, felines, yeah. Well, the cats and dogs in nature don't eat corpses. They only eat live animals. Yeah. But okay, so corpse eaters are hyenas, things like that. So and then of course there's the insects that eat them, and of course microorganisms. But the biggest, strongest animals don't eat it. They don't eat other animals. The biggest, strongest, with the most protein, like an elephant and a wildebeest and a moose, they don't eat it. Horse, they don't eat it. Gorilla. So is it okay to have? Can you get away with it? Yeah, you can get away with it. You can. You can get away with it. You can eat it and get away with it. Is it the best thing? Well, we know that it's not. We know the studies show it, which I will show in my webinar on food. I'm going to share with you the studies, so you'll see that I'm not as weird as I appear to be, and I definitely don't lie. So you can get away with it. Yeah, you can eat it and get away with it. And some people say, "I never felt better. I haven't had a vegetable in 8 years." And okay, it's fantastic. Yay. I used to work for Dr. Robert C. Atkins. You know the Atkins diet? And I watched him, not able to fly for the last couple of years of his life, because he was, and anyway, he kept having heart attacks. Didn't make it. Acting style. Yeah. Now, as I said, you can get away with it. Yeah. My grandmother lived. Oh, yeah, you get away with it. And will you achieve optimal function? No, it's not possible because why? We'll get into that in the lecture. But pretend that I'm right for a minute. Anyway, you get away with it, but you won't achieve optimal functioning. Just like you can get away with cigarettes. You get away with it, but you won't achieve optimal function. You can get away with drinking alcohol. You can get away with a lot of things. Doesn't mean you're going to achieve optimal functioning. And that's what's important to know. Okay. All right. Instagram, you guys. I think we might as well not use it anymore. We got like 18 people. 18 people. Okay, 20. Sorry. But I mean, let's all go to X, and then we can stop all this stuff and just do X. It'd be much easier, right? Unless. Anyway, all right. So I want to go on. I'll see if I can get a couple more questions. And what time is it? Do I have time? 9:15. Okay, heart aneurysm related to inflammation. Aneurysm. You got an aneurysm? Selenium. You need selenium. It's a selenium deficiency. You need everything else we did, all the other stuff we did, but selenium. Okay, selenomethionine. You need chelated selenium. Selenomethionine. Selenium, aneurysm there. Aneurysm. But you need everything else too, and that. Oh, about the purchasing of someone's asking about the purchasing of the parasite. Yeah, there is alldaychemist.com. There's a few of them. It's on my website, but and then for niclosamide, niclosam.com. But yeah, and there's other ones. So go on my website and look at the parasite group. See if you can and watch that webinar because I have a webinar there. Okay, so I can't on to all your questions. Anyway, I'm sorry I can't answer any more questions. But gosh, Instagram, I don't know what's going on with Facebook. Facebook's cool because you guys are on this thing here. But remember, please migrate. Go towards the X. X marks the spot. Okay, we got to go to X marks the spot. All right, you guys. And I can't do much else. Had breast CFCs, had conventional treatment. How to get rid of stem cells? Yay, of CFC stem cells. Ivermectin. Mebendazole. Niclosamide. Vitamin C. Curcumin. And doxycycline. Those magic bullets. Stem cells. Now, the other thing I'm going to do besides getting rid of the stem cells is make sure, in case a few slip by, that they don't have any good soil to grow in. And how do you do that? You take care of the body. Clean it out. Get rid of it. A gardener they're having a problem with the plants. They don't cut the plant out there. They change the soil and the water and the fuel. Make sure they got enough light. That's what we do. So we are the gardeners. We have a garden. It's called our body. And it will have a harvest regardless of what we think. It's going to have a harvest. And it's either going to have the seeds that we planted or the seeds that fell in from elsewhere. All right? So you got to be good gardeners. Take care of this garden that happens to be full of flowers and fruit and love and happiness. But we've got to take care of it. And if you're sick right now, I get it that you didn't like that little metaphor. So, but I promise you, underneath all that is flowers and fruit and happiness. We've got to clean it out. We've got to just remember we got to clean it out. We've got to find all the sources of the toxins and get rid of them. And we've got to go back to living on Earth with our feet on the ground and drinking the water that the Earth produces. And drink. There's only one drink. There's not. What drink do you want? There's only one drink on the Earth. It's called water. There's not another drink. Now you can squeeze stuff up, which we do. We can get juices and stuff like that. But again, what juice is mostly water. Soda, Coke, that's not a drink. I mean, people drink it. Yeah. Anyway, so it all comes down to really fundamentally, we're all sick. We get sick and sicker because we live in an artificial world. The antidote, come back, put your feet on the ground, come back to earth and live. And you say, I can't because okay, then try to change your life wherever it is so that it is as closely as possible approximate how it would be if you were living a natural life. Okay, Sawadee Kap, Namaste, Namaskar, Aloha, and see you guys next week. Yeah. And that'll be the day before New Year's Eve, right? I probably won't show up. But anyway, I'll be here. See, and here we go, Instagram down to 14. Okay, you guys. Anyway, Sawadee Kap.